And a lot of small buyers have entered the market as Bitcoin itself has gone more global. We've seen, for example, in El Salvador.
If you look at the way that cryptocurrencies in general trade, it is still primarily in sympathy with risk assets. And
now you've got digital energy. Now your inflation rate 0. Now you can hold it for 1,000 years. You can send it 1,000 times. Transaction fee is next to nothing. So I thought it was a really good year for MicroStrategy. I thought it was a really good year for Bitcoin. If we look at Bitcoin, I would say the same is true. If you look at Black Thursday, right? People, back in March, people were afraid. Is Bitcoin an inflation hedge? Is it a safe haven or is it a risk asset? And what's going to happen? And I would say by June, July, August of last year, it was like a defensive strategy. I have some money, I got to do something with it, and maybe I'll do this Bitcoin thing with it. And then I would say by the fourth quarter, it started being opportunistic, right? When Square announced they bought Bitcoin, when PayPal started moving Bitcoin, when people saw institutional adoption, they thought, well, maybe it's not just an idealistic strategy for a small segment of true believers. Maybe this is also a tech investment. When we hit Elon Musk Day, I think Tuesday in February, whenever they announced, we crossed the chasm to the mainstream adoption. The first year of mainstream adoption, you kind of look at it from March of 2020 to February of 2021. And the second year of mainstream adoption starts in February of 2021. And we just have this litany of positive shoes dropping. The election of Biden was good for Bitcoin. The new administration and all the regulators, including Gensler and the entire crew, even Janet Yellen and even Jerome Powell, good for Bitcoin. Cynthia Lummis arriving in the Senate, good for Bitcoin. Turns out 6 other senators, good for Bitcoin. Then it turns out a congressional caucus, good for Bitcoin. Then this parade of activities, the approval of the ETF, the parade of public offerings of Bitcoin miners. By my count, there'll be 16, at least I can count off the top of my head, 16 public companies that are Bitcoin miners by the end of this year. And I'm guessing if I can count 16, there must be 20 or more. In August of last year, before we announced, I don't think you could find a single public company that held $5 million of Bitcoin on their balance sheet in August of 2020. And then all of a sudden, we'll end the year, and every Bitcoin miner, by definition, is holding some amount of Bitcoin. Many of them, like Marathon, buying Bitcoin in the open market. If you look at MicroStrategy's journey from discovery to defensive to opportunistic to strategic, I feel like Bitcoin had the same journey of it was discovering itself, and then it was an opportunity, and now it's becoming a strategy. A company that's public has to state what's your business strategy, right? And our business was selling enterprise software at the beginning of 2020 with a bunch of money on the treasury. And by the beginning of 2021, our business was a MicroStrategy, let's sell enterprise software, and a macro strategy, we're going to acquire and hold Bitcoin. And we're going to do that with equity or debt or any other kind of rational financing. So I would say we went through these 3 stages. And of course, as you find us today, it's strategic, right? Our strategy is acquire and hold Bitcoin. The core MicroStrategy business is growing better. We were not growing when we started this endeavor, and now we're growing 5 to 10% a year. So I feel like it revitalized, infused a lot of vitality and a lot of energy into the core business. It certainly infused a lot of vitality into the brand. The MicroStrategy brand is much better known. The MicroStrategy, company is much better known. If you sell enterprise software, then you're selling to CFOs and CEOs and CIOs and our competitor is Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, IBM. All much bigger, all much better known. And so your number one challenge is you walk into the place and knock on the door and they say, well, who are you? So a year ago, nobody really knew who MicroStrategy was, but today,
They know now.
a lot of people know who we are. In fact, the CEO of Microsoft might go on CNBC and talk about Microsoft and get 15,000 views on Twitter. And I would go on CNBC and get 400,000 views on, So it's kind of a very interesting thing. We leapfrog from being smallest or 100th largest enterprise software company to all of a sudden being more well-known than all these software companies we competed against. 21st century Bitcoin, you can convert the property into money in a few minutes. The commission is 0.1%. It's liquid. You can move it anywhere in the world, and it doesn't lose its energy. Is Bitcoin digital money? Yeah. Is it digital property? Yeah. Is it digital energy? Yeah. And can you make money? Yeah. A lot of money. A lot of money through the digital transformation of music. Now you've got digital energy. Now your inflation rate 0. You can send it 1,000 times. Transaction fee is next to nothing. It's effectively nothing on the Lightning Network, and you know what it is on the Bitcoin network. And you're like, well, but how's it digital energy? How do you get it back to be energy? And the answer is, okay, I send $1 billion block of it to Tokyo. I run it through an exchange. Heat exchanger? Decoder? No, I run it through a Bitcoin exchange, and I convert it back into yen, and I take the yen and I buy electricity from the Tokyo Power Company. And when do I do that? Whenever I want to do that. If your goal is to make the world a better place, I think instead of comparing Bitcoin to the dollar, compare the dollar to the peso. I think the false equivalence that happens all the time is people go, why would you bet, why do you side with the dollar over Bitcoin? And the answer is, I'm not. I'm siding with the dollar over the peso, and I'm siding with Bitcoin over gold. And it just happens to be a bipolar or like a dual model. In an inflationary environment, you might say, I guess this is my theory, in an environment where you have nation states and fiat currencies, the money decomposes into currency and property. One is an asset, one is a appreciating asset, one is a depreciating asset, and it always happens. And the only question is, what is the property and what is the currency? 100 years ago, maybe the currency was whatever and gold was the property. And then for a while, the property was sovereign debt. And then lately, before Bitcoin, the property was S&P index funds or it was real estate. And right now, the property is Bitcoin. And as long as there are governments on this earth that have the will to create their own currency, you're going to have this issue. Maybe you'll get some idealistic governments, like maybe you get the El Salvador model, but El Salvador is not even an idealist. If El Salvador is completely idealistic, they would have adopted Bitcoin and abolished the dollar, right? If they had simply said Bitcoin's property and the dollar is the currency, and then they gave everybody the Shivo wallet with the Bitcoin, it would have been less disruptive to all the businesses that have to take Bitcoin. They just take stable coin on the Lightning rail. At the point that we start to see Lightning wallets, like the only Lightning wallet you want, in my opinion, is one Lightning wallet that has dollars and has Bitcoin. You want to be able to move the dollars at the speed of light and the Bitcoin at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. At the point that you have that, I think that that's the killer application for the world.